So I just discovered black lipstick, but I would like it to be known that this is a new personality trait. Hi, my name is Adriana, and today I'll be going over my third quarter reading stats for 2022. So to start off, I think I just wanted to touch on my third quarter TBR that I sent back in June. Here are all of the books that I said I wanted to read, and I read all of them. A couple of them came down to just under the wire, but they were finished, they got done, and I did it. And I'm proud of myself for that. So before I jump into stats and graphs, please consider liking and commenting on this video and subscribing to my channel if you like bookish things. So to start up, I'm just gonna put up this little kind of chart of some different stats that I would like to talk through. I'm going to look off my iPad because I obviously can't see the screen before I edit. So in the third quarter, I read a total of 24 books. Year to date, starting back in, I should define what the third quarter is in my calendar. I just go off of the calendar weeks starting January 1st through December 31st. So the third quarter fell from June 30-ish timeframe to September 30-ish time frame. So those 3 months was the third quarter of the year that I am referring to. So in those 3 months, I read 24 books, and starting from the beginning of the year, from January till September 30th, I've read a total of 57 books. That third column is my year-to-date budget, so where I was supposed to be based on my goals. My goal for book count for the total of the year was 50, so obviously I've already done that. So by this point in the year, I was supposed to be 37.5 books in, but I have gone past that. Next up is pages. So this was a page count that I was physically reading, so I don't include my audiobook hours within this number. But in the third quarter, I read 6,213 pages, and so far this year, I have read 14,288. So my year to date, based on a total of 13,500, was 10,125. Going to way surpass that goal, which is awesome. That just means I get to set a much higher goal for next year. The one goal I am struggling with a little bit is my average page length of a book. In the third quarter, my average page length was 322.2 pages. My year to date so far has been 396.9 pages, and my goal was around 450. Now, obviously, it doesn't matter if I actually hit any of these goals. Like, I'm not beholden to anybody about these goals, but this was just kind of a challenge for myself to get myself to read longer books, because a lot of times I would keep myself from reading longer books because I just intimidated. So I just kind of wanted to challenge myself to read some longer books. Year to date, I've been doing pretty well. I'm almost at 400 pages. I think if I read some chunkier books throughout the rest of the year, I could maybe hit that 450. We'll have to see. It gets a little bit harder to bump up that average the more you read. But I do have some pretty big books planned for the rest of the year. You can see my Q4 TBR linked in the cards and down below. Total hours listened to of audiobooks. This quarter I listened to 101.5 hours of audiobooks. Year to date is 222.5. I do tend to listen to audiobooks at a little bit faster, so this is just the one-time speed length of the book and not necessarily the amount of time I spent reading audiobooks. And then finally, this is a number to shame myself in front of everybody, and that is the total amount of money I have spent on books this year. So in this quarter, I spent $314, and year to date has been $919. So almost $1,000 I have spent on books this year, which is not great. I will, at the end of the year, be calculating how many of the books I purchased this year I have actually read, and a couple of this $919 is pre-orders, so I will be reading them like next year, but it's not great. It's not good. My dad told me not to add up the amount of money I've spent on books, and I am beginning to believe him. So next, let's jump into some of my fun graphs. This is all year to date, starting from January to now. I didn't separate it out by the quarter because that's not as interesting to me. But the first graph I want to put up here is my genre breakdown, and honestly, it's pretty varied, which I do like to see. I'm about a quarter fantasy. Next would probably be romance, and nonfiction. So kind of my big three: fantasy, romance, nonfiction, and then kind of general fiction stuff. I can't really figure out where to put anywhere else. So that would include like contemporary fiction sort of stuff as well. A little bit of mystery thriller, a little bit of sci-fi. I mean, we're kind of all over the place, which I love. I love being able to read a bunch of different stories and a bunch of different types of stories, so I am pretty happy with this general breakdown. My page length graph, histogram, whatever you want to call it, you can see here. I do have a majority of my books in that 300 to 350 bin. I would like to see that shift a little bit towards the higher end by the end of the year. We'll have to see. Sometimes the book you want to read is a short book, and I can't do anything about that. My next graph is my where it is in the series breakdown. So whether it is the start of a series, the middle of a series, the end of the series, or just a standalone. A majority of what I read is standalone, but I have started quite a few series, ended very few. Haven't really ended any series this year. I think maybe, I don't even know. I've ended like maybe 1 or 2 series. And one of them was the Poppy War, which I just binged all this year. So I haven't been very good about keeping up and continuing on with my series, but that's what Squash That Series is for. So shouts to Kayla and Bailey for keeping me in check. The next graph is a histogram of the year the book I was reading was published. Most of what I'm reading was published after 2020. The one book way back in 1950 was Old Man and the Sea. I am expecting to read one more kind of older book before the end of the year, but I don't really see the overall shape of this graph really changing anytime soon. I've really been vibing with, you know, newer releases, stuff released kind of after 2020 or, you know, in the late 20-teens. So I'm enjoying it. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to keep loving what I'm reading. The next graph is my format breakdown. I'm about 36.8% audiobook at this point in the year, and then my physical reads are somewhat evenly split between ebook, paperback, and hardback. That is that. Kind of interesting to look at. The next is my rating histogram. So most of what I'm reading is above a 4-star. I think I'm a pretty easy rater in general. Like if I'm enjoying a book, I'm probably gonna give it a 4-star. And if I like kind of enjoy it, I'm probably gonna give it a 3. I have to actively dislike something to give it less than a 3. If I'm just meh on a book, I'll give it a 3. But I have to actively dislike what I'm reading to give it a 1 or a 2. Then finally, this graph is pretty messy. I don't even really know if I want to put it up, but I'm gonna fix it before my end of the year stats breakdown. But this is a graph of where I'm buying my books from. So as you can see here, a good portion of my books is coming from Barnes & Noble. Another good portion is coming from thriftbooks.com. Going forward, one of the things I'm gonna try to do to like clean it up a little bit is to lump all of the indie bookstores together. So that would be like Auntie's, which is in here twice because one of them has an apostrophe and the other doesn't, so that's fun. Fact and Fiction is another indie bookstore. Matter, page 42 is another indie. Sandbox is an indie. Powell's is an indie. So another good portion of my books is coming from indie bookstores, which I really try to push for. I love small businesses. I love Powell's. This is a map of Powell's bookstore. I like to try to support small independent bookstores when I can. That was just a quick wrap up of my stats in the third quarter. I'm feeling really good about, I've already hit like 2 of my goals. Really all I have left is from my beginning of the year goal setting video is to try to up my average page length to 450 and to read For Whom the Bell Tolls by Ernest Hemingway, which I wanted to save for the end of the year anyway. So I'm feeling really good. You know, it's good to succeed in your goals. Let me know how you are doing with your reading goals, what kind of stats you keep track of, and thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you